Okay, this video is about some of the features that I didn't really go over very well in the previous videos, so I wanted to kind of spell them out here. So right now the programmer, we're still developing the firmware to take 2 times 2 megabyte chips. Let's see if I can get this to. So both chips are 2 megabytes, but you combine them with the decoder, U3 decoder, and that would make 4. And so right now the programmer doesn't recognize 2 times 2 or 2 plus 2, and so what we're going to do is we're going to program the chips individually, and this method is going to be the same for 1 times 1 or 2 plus 1, for 3 megabytes, or 4 plus 4 for 8 megabytes. So right now it will do 4 plus 2. So you have a 4 megabyte chip and a 2 megabyte chip, then it will program that. That's a typical extended mapping. So basically, just going to kind of detail how to program the ROMs individually in case you have old firmware or we don't get the new firmware or whatever. And so, all right, so the board in kind of native form. Come on. So down here we have R20, R16, and then two solder bridges. So R20, what R20 is going to do is it's going to keep the decoder pulled high. Okay, so because of how the extended mapping works, it's just the opposite. Normally you would think, the low would come first and the high. But for whatever reason, it's opposite. And so when we do something that's not extended mapping, then it's just the opposite. So anyways, I'll explain that in a minute. Wow, this thing's having a hard time focusing. So what we're going to do now, okay, so this man, come on, focus. So R20 is the exact same thing as bridging this. Just doing a solder bridge of these two. And it's exactly the same. So the reason why R20 is here is for the pick and place machines. And so, when I have an assembly order run of this board, then they can just, instead of me doing that solder jumper on the back, I can just have them put a 0 ohm, jumper right there on R20. Because these chips here, they cost about $1.50 each. So $3, that's a good deal for 4 megabytes. And so, anyway, but in non-extended mapping, these chips are basically opposite. And so right now, R19 holds, or R18, excuse me, holds the decoder in a high. When it holds it high, the select line, then it's going to choose this ROM first. And so when you split a ROM that's not extended mapping, then this would be, quote, ROM 1, this would be ROM 2. And I'll go over that in a second as well. So anyway, so the reason why this resistor is here is so that if you mount only one ROM here with the decoder, then you will always get this one ROM. So anyway, so whenever you split a ROM, when, like, for example, when A21 is low or ground, then then it's going to select, you know, the lower bank. In this case, it would be this ROM. This would be the low map, and then this would be high. And so, okay, and then our mapper's in high, and we're going to do this real quick. So, all right, I have my, let's see. Okay, I've got, oh, this is hard to do with one hand. Okay, so my hex editor is WinHex, and then in WinHex there's a split tool, and this is not unique to WinHex. I'm sure many hex editors have this. So it's going to ask me, you know, which file do I want to split, and then I'm going to click yes, and then let's see, so Donkey Kong, so I'm going to hit split, and then it's going to just say what the desired size, so I'm going to put 2, which is already there, and now it's going to say, okay, what do you want to call the first split? And I'm just going to put 1 because it's the bottom first part. Oh man, that's weird. And so split. And now for the second chunk, whatever it is, if it's a 3 megabyte game, then it would be, you know, only 1 megabyte would be remaining. And so so this, we're going to call this just number 2. Okay, so we're done with that. X out. All right, so there's my ROM 1 and ROM 2. So, I'm gonna put my cartridge in my programmer. Make sure it's on the correct mapping for Donkey Kong 3, which is high, and turn it on. So nothing's bridged. The 2 times 2 is not bridged. You want to leave that unbridged for this exercise. And so front or back, you want to leave it unbridged. All right, so as I explained earlier, it's going to select the high, what would be the ROM 2 or the high map first. And so here's my programmer. So we're going to grab number 2 because that resistor is pulling the decoder high. So we're going to grab number 2 because we want to put it in the right spot. And this won't take very long. So again, we're programming the ROMs independently because the firmware is not developed yet to see both ROMs as a unified group. So, but again, hopefully the firmware will be updated. This video will be moot. But either way, it helps to learn just the function of the board and the programmer and how these things work. So, almost done. Okay, so it's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge. I'm going to bridge this jumper here. Okay. So I'm going to set the phone down for a minute, bridge this, and then pick it right back up. All right, so that's bridged. And then when I put it in the programmer, I mean, in this case, it'll show it as being, wow, this thing's bad. This is an iPhone 8, so yeah, it's got lots of miles on it. So there's no ROM here yet, and I can even do a properties, and it'll show you that 2 megabytes is free right here. So this other stuff is kind of imaginary to, and they're fake files. Anyways, all right, so this is, I bridged that, which grounds that input line on the decoder. So it's pulled high by the resistor, now it's ground, so now it's selecting the other output. So I'm going to grab number 1 and put it here. Again, if you have a game that's just 2 megabytes, then you wouldn't have to do this, because one of the ROMs would be 2 megabytes. I'm splitting a 4 megabyte game, Donkey Kong 3, into 2 times 2 megabyte chunks. And so, all right, so this will be done in a second. Now there's a file in here called read SRAM binary, and it's 64 kilobytes. So you can download the RAM, whatever's like your saved memory. You can drop it, but again, something else we're working on, but you can't write back to it yet. And so, all right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to remove that bridge. If I can do this. Okay, so remove it. And then we're going to make this bridge. Let's see, did that work? Nope. All right, so let me bridge that real quick. Can't solder one-handed, so. Okay. So now I am letting, in this case, A21, address A21, do the decoding. So now we're done. We programmed both ROMs independently. And there's the game. Okay. And the other two things I was going to bring to your attention is the 256K RAM mapping. So you can bridge these two. You have to do this one and this one for the high map, and then this pair for the low mapping. And then if you have a game that needs less than 64K, wow, this is bad. I can't believe how bad this is. If you have a game that is 64K, or if you have a game that needs 16K, and let's say it errors if you present it with 64K, then just cut these two traces right here, and that'll dumb the memory down, the RAM memory down to 16K. So there's some other jumpers here, but maybe that'll be for a later video. My phone is blowing up about people trying to contact me. So, and again, if you're gonna go back and erase these, you would have to erase them independently. You would have to remove, the automatic, mapping, and erase them independently. So if you were to program 2 times 4 megabytes, so 8 megabytes total, then instead of this bridging, you would just bridge these two. So, you know, the bottom two instead of the top two. And then later on, if you have two 1 megabyte ROMs, then you would bridge these two right here. So this would be A20 times times 2, you know, 1 megabyte times 1 megabyte. So this would be A20 decoding. This is A21 right here. And then A23 would be the bottom two. A22 is skipped. All right, so that's, in a nutshell, a very blurry, fuzzy. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Okay, so ROMs. Okay, so maybe this will help clear up some confusion. So you've got like 2 megabytes, the D version. And the D is essentially the 23 nanometer process. You know, and it says down here it's compatible with the, you know, the B devices. So the B devices are 35, you know, nanometers, and so they're essentially the same. It's just a different process. That's why one's a B and one's a D. And then down here is probably a more important aspect of this. So the connections. You have a standard TSOP profile pinout, and you have a reverse pinout. You do not want the reverse pinout. The reverse is a mirror image of the standard. That's so you could put one ROM on top, one ROM on bottom of a circuit board, and then the pinouts would be very closely lined. So, and then the B version. B version also has a 48 pin standard TSOP. If you look, pins 1, 2, 23, 24, you know, 25, 26, and 47, 40. They're all no connections. So it's the exact same pinout as the 40 pin version. They're just dead pins. So, and then down here, this tells you what the packages are. So the 70 is the speed, and then this E right here, this is your package type. That's where this is important. So when you're ordering this board here, can take, you know, the E package type just fine. F is the reverse pinout. You do not want an F in your part number. So anything with an F means fail. Okay, so E or E4, 40, you know, E4 stands for 40 pin. So F4 is a reverse pin package, 40 pin. So again, our board can accommodate 48 or 40, but not the F, which is a reverse pinout. So when you're on eBay or hunting around for part numbers, trying to find, you know, these parts, the 2 megabyte parts are pretty plentiful. I mean, I bought a bunch for $1.50, and on eBay they're typically $3 or $2.50 with free shipping. And so finding the 2 megabyte parts isn't too much of a problem, but you want to stay away from the F packages, F in their part number. And so that's very important. So, all right, well, that's the end of it.